In this video, I'm going to give you two demonstrations of how to make particles like you see here. One on the left that's in Minecraft nether door style animation, and one on the right that's a simple blood splatter effect. Both of these are made in Godot's particle system with no outside textures or resources necessary. You can make them all totally within Godot, and I'm going to show you how to do it. If you haven't seen my previous particle video, which goes over how to use Godot's particle system, make sure you go and check that one out first so that you can follow along with this one and have a good understanding of what's going on. And then you can take these and modify them on your own to match whatever you need for your own game. Let's get started. So now I'm going to show you how to make a blood splatter particle as an example to go over some of these principles we just learned. So first I'm going to bump the lifetime down a little bit, bump the explosiveness up to 0.8 because we want these particles to come out pretty much right away. Normally I would make this one shot, but I'll keep it as emitting for now because we want to be able to continuously see it in the editor. I'm going to bump our amount up to, let's do 12. We don't want it too much, but a fair amount. And we'll bump a little bit of randomness to this, just a 0.1, just to make it a little bit more dynamic. So I'm going to set a new particles material here, and we're going to set our gravity. Always got to remove that. We'll make our direction to the right. We'll keep that just the way it is. We want our spread to be a little smaller, I think, so we'll do 30 here. And let us give this a bit of initial velocity. We'll set this as a very high velocity that we are going to make much smaller right away. So we set 100 for the initial velocity. We'll set the damping to be even higher. That's too high. Let's do 500. How about that? And so it just kind of shoots out and then stops pretty quickly. Let's just make it a little bit smaller. And it looks kind of awkward right now, but yeah, let's do it a little bit higher. It looks kind of awkward right now, but we are going to use size and color to make it a little bit better. Actually, let's try giving it a negative acceleration so you can kind of see the difference here. So this sometimes negative acceleration gives it a little bit more of a dynamic slowdown effect. The problem is that acceleration eventually overcomes the velocity, and so you see it kind of stuttering right there. But we'll get around that. So we can come down here to scale, and we're going to set scale 1. We'll do a new curve texture just like we talked about earlier, and we're going to just move this second point down here to be pretty small, not all the way small, but that should be good enough. And so we're getting small over time. Then we'll do color. We're going to do a color ramp here, new gradient. Select this gradient. Let's get a new gradient going on. I have to click like 5 times. Okay, kind of similar to what we did before. We'll do a blood effect here, and we're going to make this much darker. We'll set it here. I'm going to bump this over here. We'll make a new color here, which will be the same color. I'll just make it black actually, and we'll give it some alpha. So over time we see all of a sudden, even though we know that there's some weird stuttering with the acceleration going on at the end, it's actually working out pretty nicely. And I'm actually going to bump this transparency up so that we don't even get to the end there. Same with the scale. Let's make it get small even earlier, just like that. Okay, and I'm actually going to change this velocity to be a little bit less. Okay, I think that looks much better. We'll make this maybe -100. So that is an example of one type of a blood splatter effect you can do that just kind of shoots out. Again, you can mess with this as needed. For example, instead of doing acceleration, I could come into our damping and use that, which might be a good option here too. You just kind of got to mess around with it and see like what's going to look the best for what you've got going. So I think damping in this case is actually a little bit better now that we've adjusted the velocity a little bit and we have the transparency and the size scaling. So that looks pretty good. It just kind of shoots out and then disappears just like this. So that's one example of how you can make a blood particle effect really quickly in the Godot engine. Okay, now let's do as another example, talk about how we can do some kind of a portal shimmer effect. So I'm going to actually just add a sprite to our game, and I'm going to set this transform to be 0, 0. I'm going to scale it up so we have a 5 by 5 door. Let's actually make it taller. So let's just say, look at this as a door. Let me change the modulate on this so that it'll be a little bit more. Again, let's go for a Minecraft-y kind of nether portal example. So we'll make this a dark purple like that. Okay, so we're going to use particles here to kind of give this a shimmery effect. So I'm going to, I already have our amount. Let's set it for 12. Let's do something a little bit higher now. We'll do maybe 24, adjust if needed. We'll keep a lifetime of 1. That seems about fine. And now we're not going to have any explosiveness. We might need to change that in a second. but we'll keep all this the same for now. We can create a new particles material here. And so there's a couple things we need to do. First, actually, let me set the Z index for this just for the sake of this video to -1 so we can see our particles. Okay, and so what we're gonna do, of course, is just get rid of the gravity. And so for our initial velocity, we actually want it to go up a little bit. So I'll set initial velocity of 5, perhaps, maybe 2. We just kind of want it to hazily float, and our direction is actually going to be up. So we'll get rid of that. And our spread, oh, whoops, sorry, it needs to be -1 because we're going upwards. Set that to 0. And we'll set our spread to be about 60 just to make it go up a little bit. Now we'll change our emission shape to match our box. So remember our door here, it has a scale of 10 going up, or 20 up and down, and then 10 left and right. So if I come into our emission shape and change this to be a box, we can make it just a little bit lower than that. So these extents are, it's kind of like a radius, thinking of a sphere. So we just want it to match, so 10 and 20 there. You see that it's a little big because these are twice as much. Remember, it's like a radius. So if I do 5 and 10, we'll see it more closely. Now it's actually emitting within our box here. And I'm going to bring it down by a couple on each side just to make it appear only within the inner parts of the box. So now we've got this emission shape that looks much better. We won't mess with trail yet, but let's definitely mess with the color first. So we'll add another color ramp here, gradient texture, add a new gradient, and let's make this a lighter purple at the start, maybe, or a pinkish almost. Again, just Minecraft for inspiration, and we'll make this maybe more of a dark bluish almost. And again, similar to the blood effect, we're going to make a new color, and we'll bump that up here, make it a little bit darker, and just make some of the transparency go down a little bit. And look at that, even that is a lot better, but these are kind of big, so we're going to need to change the scale here. So we'll have a new scale curve. I think they're a good scale at the beginning, but we'll see. We can adjust that in our curve as well rather than changing our scale up there. So let's make them go down. Oh yeah, even that's a lot better. Let's start them as just a tiny bit smaller. And I wonder if we make them get smaller quickly. That looks kind of good. I think we do need this to be smaller at the start. Yeah, that looks much better. Okay, and let's do some randomness here just to make them not all start the same. I think that is pretty good. So I mean, even look at that, like that's already a pretty good like kind of portal shimmery door animation. We can do some interesting things here, like adding a little bit of orbital velocity, perhaps just a tiny bit. Let's see what that does. And now we've got kind of this spinny effect where it kind of escapes the bounds of the door. So that's even in itself kind of interesting. If I make it a little bit smaller, it's just like a slight shimmery getting caught in the wind. So that's one thing you can do. But even besides that, we can even add some tangential acceleration, which will over time make it appear swirling. I guess I need to make it a little bit more since it's acceleration. So this is also another property that you can use to make the particles kind of swirl around over time. So look at that. I mean, that looks a lot more dynamic already. And one thing we could even do with this, for example, with our scale, is make it small here. We could add another point here or here and kind of make this go in and out a little bit over time. So there we go. So now you've got these. I think I still want this to be smaller overall, but now it's kind of got this shimmery, glowing, getting bigger effect, which is interesting. And what we can do is also, well, I think honestly, that's pretty good, right? I mean, we've got this dynamic, this swirling kind of going up and down, this bubbling style of portal here that I think really works well with what we're trying to do. So even this in itself, I think, is a pretty good example of what you can get with Godot here. We could do some other things to change it, like if I add just a bit of explosiveness, it'll kind of bubble up in more bursts. I'm not a huge fan of that, but it's something you could do. If we add a trail here, it might get kind of interesting. So you'll see multiple particles following each other. This would be good if you had maybe a smaller door or something that you were trying to make a portal for and you wanted the effect to be more pronounced, but I think it's better without a trail in our case. So anyway, yeah, that's another example. You've seen how we can make a blood splatter effect in Godot, and also how we can make a Minecraft nether door style portal effect in Godot using only the particle system. We didn't even need to bring in any outside textures. Anyway, thanks so much for watching, everyone. I hope you've learned a little bit about how to use particles in Godot. If this video has been helpful, a like and subscribe to support the channel are always appreciated. We'd love to have you in our Discord server. The link to that is in the description, and you can always donate to help support my channel and keep the content coming. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video.